Okay, so the next and final phase for us, really, before we just test it, is to do the business logic. So before, when we were doing our signup.php, we had this little p tag up at the top here, and that has this require statement. Now you'll notice that there is a little closing tag on there. Because this signup-helper.php file is going to be purely PHP, the only thing we need is the opening tag. I know occasionally some students have had the experience where they may need the closing tag and it makes some difference, but by and large it doesn't. Anyway, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create an if statement. Now, we're kind of jumping into PHP feet first with all this stuff. I'm showing you a lot, but you're going to have plenty of experience doing this over the course of the semester. We're going to basically set up these scripts. If you'd like to, you can set it up in the form of methods as you so choose. But for right now, we're going to focus on getting something that works. And then we'll iteratively build on it later. We'll build out some of the security in this so that it adheres to at least some, if not all, best practices. So there is a particular method for checking to see if the submit button or any button has been clicked, right? So because remember, this signup helper is being called in our signup.php page, our main page that you will actually see. So we're going to be looking for this sign up submit button. So what happens is when you use this post method right here, when you click the button, all of the data, all of what you have entered into these input fields basically gets sent through the browser. Using a connection to this database. Before that happens, we're going to do some processing on it. We're going to make sure that someone's not doing any shady stuff. We're going to be using what's called prepared statements, and I'll get to those in just a second. We're also going to be checking for multiplicity of usernames to see if anyone's made the same username account, so you don't get a collision like that. And anyway, before we do that, look in your database handler, your dbhandler.php, which should be under your includes folder. Now, you need to make sure that your username is phpMyAdmin, and then the password is whatever you assign for the password. If you're using the VM that I made for you guys, that I made for at least anyone who wants it, it is the CS230 lab with a lowercase l. And the database name is CS230, assuming you use the same database name like I asked you to. The server name, so we're using localhost, and this could also be 127.0.0.1. It means the same thing. Typically, this would, in an enterprise kind of environment, this would be whatever IP address you were given. You would use a static IP address, and that would be where this site lived at all times. And then this connection is basically just an object for connecting to the database. And we're going to use this connection object. We're going to use this connection. Think of this kind of as like a portal that we're opening up. And then if the connection fails, if this fails, then we just produce this error that says connection failed. So, and then this will give you the error. This is something I probably just meant to put in there. Anyway, we're going to say goodbye to our DB handler. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this method called isSet. And what that does is we're going to use what's called a global variable. PHP has a couple of these big time variables that can be called anywhere, anytime, and they'll have data associated with them in a key value pair situation. So post is a variable that has all kinds of other stuff that is stored with it in key value pairs that we are naming using this. So every time you see name, that is the key, and the value is whatever comes with it. So in the case of this sign up submit, this will either be like a binary 1 or 0, I believe. So if it's if it has stuff in it, that would be 1. I always mix those two up. I believe 1 is true, and then 0 is false. Anyway, so we're gonna see if this is true, right? So we're gonna see if someone has clicked on the button submit, sign up, submit, and then we're gonna put curly braces right here. You do not need to have an else statement with this if. And in fact, what we'll see is we can actually split up this if statement using these PHP tags as well, but we'll get to that later on in the semester. So PHP has some unique qualities about it that I haven't seen in other languages, at least. So in here, we're going to use that require statement, and it's going to be our require DB handler. Now you might say, but Mike, why aren't you using the 2 dots like you used before for the CSS and other stuff? Well, it's because this signup helper.php is in the same folder as our DB handler, and we're calling it from within the same folder. So that's why. Now we're going to start using variables in PHP, which start with a $sign. Every single time they start with a $sign. So whenever you see a $sign, you know that that's a variable. This is a global variable, big time, super global variable. All right. They follow typical naming conventions like you would in other programming languages. Can't start with a number. I believe you can start with a underscore, as you can see very clearly right here, but has to be either an underscore or a letter, either upper or lowercase. It does not matter. There are certain there are reserved words, but you obviously won't use them because even if I put require right here, that's treated as if it's regular because this does not have a $sign in front. This is a reserved word. Done. So anyway, and then again, you use the semicolon to close out each of your lines of code. So the first one is going to be our username variable. And what that's going to do is we're going to be using this $underscore post pretty much all semester. So you should get friendly with it. All right. So remember how I said that this post variable stores an associative array. An associative array is the same thing as a key value pair. In Python, that's called a dictionary. In Java, that's a hash map or a map. I don't know what the equivalent would be in C++, because C definitely doesn't have that from what I remember. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. Anyway, where I'm grabbing that from, again, is the names. So the username has this uname right here. So it needs to be the same as it is on your signup.php page. Okay, so just reference that. If you made a typo in there, then either make the typo twice or correct the typo. So either commit or don't, basically. And we're basically going to be copying and pasting this a couple of times, actually. So I'm going to copy and paste this. Let's see, we needed 6. Yes, 6. Because we had 6 fields. Sorry, not 6 fields, but we 5 fields that we were altering, but we had 6 input fields. So username, email, the first version of password, our password underscore repeat, our fname, and our lname. It doesn't matter what you call the variables as long as you're consistent. You can call it whatever you want. These, however, matter. So for example, this is not going to be uname. This is going to be lname, fname. This is going to be con dash pwd. This is going to be pwd. And the email is just email, which you can verify by, again, going back to your signup.php page. So there's the first password. There's a confirmed password for me. Email, last name, first name. All right, great. So these are our variables. This is grabbing the stuff from the signup form. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to make sure that the passwords match. So we're going to have another if statement. Okay. There we go. Use the square one, as you can see, for the autofill. Or don't be lazy, whichever works. Password. All right, so we're going to make sure that this is... all right, so we're going to see if it's not equal to. So in PHP, you use 2 equal signs and then the not symbol for testing for inequality. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if it's not equal to our pass rep, pass w rep, use autocomplete where you can. What's going to happen is we're going to kick the person back to the sign up page. And the way we do that is with this header function. This will allow us to redirect the user using this simple string right here, location, colon, space, dot, dot, which means we're going back, we're going up, signup.php. And then to help us out as a developer, we're going to have our error message up here in the URL. And we're going to do that by putting a question mark here. And we're going to say error equals diff passwords. Passwords. All right. Anyway. And then outside of this guy, we're going to have exit. Apparently I'm very bad at auto-completing stuff. Make sure that you have closing quotes, the double quotes for these, closing parenthesis, and the semicolon. Very frequently I see people making typos because of that stuff. So if that's the case, we're going to kick the person back. The next check we're going to do is, okay, we're going to see if the person's trying to perform what's called a SQL injection. What a SQL injection attempts to do is to use basically SQL code in where you would put like a username or a password or something like that, and then erase the rest of the statement and get either data back or try and basically assign the value of whatever you're validating against to be true. And what this would allow you to do is to log on as, say, the root user, for example, or an admin, which is no bueno. So what we're going to say is, all right, else. So assuming that the passwords are the same, right? We're going to have a SQL statement here. So starting off with our $sign SQL, which is not mandatory. This is just a variable that I'm using to store our SQL statement. And you're going to start off with this select keyword. So select is almost like used to search. So we're going to get the uname from, which is another keyword, the users table, where another keyword, and this is the search parameter, where the uname equals question mark. So what this is going to do is it's going to check to see if, one, there's going to be a SQL injection, and then two, if the username is identical. And if it's identical to another one that's already there, then that person already exists, and we don't want to have duplicates. You can't have two people with the same username. So to check to see if something is a SQL injection, we're going to use what are called prepared statements. And what these do is they basically format everything and check to see if it is SQL code or if it is just a valid string. A string would be anything that is not SQL code. And if it is SQL code, then we throw a big time error and we throw up a red flag. So we're going to use this method called mysqli underscore stmt underscore init. So we're going to initiate a connection to the database using our con variable. Oops, I have a weird thing right there. Weird stray semicolon. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say if this is where we check to see where we actually prepare the statements. If it's not good, basically, not mysqli underscore stmt underscore prepare $stmt, and then the connection SQL, sorry, the SQL code that we have right here. Oops. If, there we go. All right. So if this person has been bad, kick him out. Using this kind of location thing, and the error it's going to be similar, but we're going to explicitly say SQL injection, and then exit. And it's going to follow this kind of pattern where we have an if-else, if-else for some of these checks. So let's see. Else. We'll make more elegant structures as well throughout the course of the semester. But for right now, it's really important to just get the basics down. So I'm going to do mysqli underscore statement. We're going to bind these values as parameters. Oops. That needs to go inside the parentheses. What I'm doing here is I'm using a placeholder. This placeholder is S. It needs to be an S. S is for string. S is used for a number of things, but it's used for basically like varchar kind of data. There's D, I believe, for decimal. There's several other ones out there, but this is the one you'll be using pretty much all the time this semester. and we're going to pass in the username. So this is where we actually are going to run the query next. We're going to execute the statement mysqli underscore stmt underscore execute. Yep. And this is where we're going to bring in the statement. And we're going to store the result of statement. mysqli underscore stmt underscore store underscore result. All right, cool. So the way we're going to check to see if a name is duplicated is we are going to run this across our database in our users table. And we're going to say, okay, find me all of the usernames, find me all of the rows that have the username that I'm passing in, which is going to be the username that we provided in our signup form. And if you get anything back, you know that there's a duplicate, that there's someone already with that username, and that username is taken. So we're going to have a check variable here, and that is going to be the result of my SQLi underscore stmt underscore num underscore rows. And as you can imagine, this gets the number of results from this gets the number of rows from our result. Wow, words are hard. Be aware and make sure that you check for typos all over the place. Pretty much 100% of the errors that I see are typo related. So if check is greater than 0, then we're going to copy and paste one of these guys. And we're just going to change up the error. It's not going to be a SQL injection. It's going to be username taken. All right. Now, we don't have any values in our tables or anything yet. So this is where we're actually going to start putting them in there. All right, great. So else we're going to actually make another SQL statement now, where we're just going to reassign the value of SQL. And this is where we're actually going to perform an insert operation. So remember when I showed you the databases, I told you that you could insert a row, you could insert a record in there using that insert button. This is the same thing, just in code form. So this is how you add or append data to a database. We're going to go into the users table. We are going to grab the last name, fname, email, uname, and password. And we're going to provide it the values, placeholders. But these placeholders are special. These are question marks because we're going to check these using prepared statements as well. So in a very similar fashion, we're going to take another statement. Right here, we're going to copy and paste this SQL injection bit. It's not necessary. It's not like Python. it just makes it look better, and it's easier for me to see, and probably easier for you to see as well. So this is going to do our prepared statement check to see if any of the other ones, any of these other variables are SQL injections. And assuming they are not, now we're actually going to insert our values into our table. But before we do that, we are going to just do our hashing. We need to actually encrypt the password. So this is actually a very important point